Grant Cottage is 140 years old this year, and you know, what's always been amazing to me is that this 140-year-old wooden building has escaped catastrophic fire damage because it's in such a remote area. But we've spent a tremendous amount of money over the past 6 months to be able to put a state-of-the-art fire suppression system inside this building. And thank goodness we did it just in time. Let me show you how it works. Where did everything go? Well, in preparation for this $1.2 million state-of-the-art fire protection system, all of the furniture, all of the clothing, the wall hangings, the floral arrangements, and the personal effects of Ulysses S. Grant were removed for safekeeping during construction. Chris Crivello is a vice president of RAN Fire Protection Engineering, and he tells us why it's so special and expensive.
So what you have is nitrogen mixing with water mist. And what happens is as the system discharges, the nitrogen drops the oxygen concentration in the room from around 21% oxygen down to 13% oxygen. And that's important because 16% oxygen is what a fire needs to sustain itself. So the first aspect of the suppression is that the nitrogen drops that oxygen down to 13%, it puts the fire out.
But couldn't that watery mist damage some of the historic artifacts and furniture in the cottage?
But that mist is a very dense fog. So think of it, if you're outside on a day that's foggy and you can only maybe see 15 feet in front of you, that's the environment it makes in the room. Yes, there'll be some dampness, but you won't have water damage from occurring.
The tanks for the nitrogen and the water mist have been installed in the basement of the cottage.
So the black tanks are the nitrogen bottles. Those tanks, during a discharge, they're sized based on the size of the building. And overall, you have to get that oxygen concentration down to 13%. This was the first ever hybrid extinguishing system installed for historic occupancy. And the second challenge is that the hybrid system, because it's nitrogen and water mist, you have two pipes. So rather than having to fit one pipe up through the wall and across the ceiling, now you're trying to fit two pipes side by side. A little bit more of a challenge, but the obvious benefit is that you get that dual agent protection.
Now, the nitrogen misting system doesn't have to be triggered immediately because there's a series of high-tech sensors which can smell the faintest level of smoke and alert Grant Cottage officials so they can check it out before a nitrogen discharge occurs.
A very high-end type of smoke detector goes back to a panel in the basement. And in that panel, the sensor can sense smoke from anywhere as small as the melting of a coating on the outside of a wire, all the way up to smoke density similar to a smoke alarm in your house.
Paige Schmidt is a wooden objects conservator for Parks and Historic Preservation, and she made repairs to some furniture in the cottage during this 6-month construction project.
Many of those pieces have been on site more or less for the past 150 years, so this gave us the opportunity to look a little closer at some of those pieces. And so for a variety of reasons, a few pieces were selected to come to the lab that either needed a little bit more heavy-handed cleaning. We had some inactive mold that was on some of the collection pieces. And then some pieces had some structural instability, and so this is a good opportunity for us to actually address those repairs.
Curator Amanda Massey from the State Bureau of Historic Sites has used as many as 15 workers to pack up and remove everything from inside the cottage, and now that construction is completed, she's going to make sure it all gets back where it was in the summer of 1885.
Before we took everything out of the building, we made sure we had an inventory of everything that was in it, so we know exactly where everything was and what was there. And one of our units, our collections management unit, are the people that are in charge of keeping track of all the collections statewide, so they know where they are at any given time. So because we have that, we know what's at the storage facility, what's in the house, what's at People's Island. So we've been planning. We haven't just been sitting on our hands. Both the conservators have been working on things in their labs, getting them ready, getting them cleaned and prepared. Given that Grant Cottage is a site that is like a time capsule, we want to make sure that the things that the public's used to seeing, the things that they expect to see, go back on display.
So now you know why we have been delayed a couple of weeks in our opening of the cottage to tours this season, and why we are so grateful to our donors and the New York State Department of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation for saving Grant Cottage from fire. I'm Tim Welch, a cottage volunteer.